Hello, welcome or welcome back to my channel and welcome to my July, August and September wrap up. So in this video, I'm going to be telling you about all the books that I read in the last 3 months. So July, August and September, like I said. And so in July, I read 10 books. In August, I read 5 because I was on holiday and I always read like way less when I'm on holiday. And September, well, I'm not entirely sure yet because today is the 28th of September, and so I still have like today and 2 more days to read, and so like it's entirely possible that I will finish another book, but I like had to film this video today because it's like the only day that I have like really time to sit down and film like a long video like this. But if I do finish another book, I will obviously like insert a small clip at the end. But for now, I read 10 books. So I have, for now, 25 books to tell you about. And so the first 2 books I'm gonna be talking about are City of Dragons and Blood of Dragons, which are books 3 and 4. So the last 2 books in the Rainwild Chronicles, which are part of the Realm of the Elderlings series world, which is fantasy. And this is like the 4th series like within that world, and so like it's really hard to talk about this without spoiling. But basically, like in this quartet, we were following like a group of dragons and a group of humans who were going on sort of a journey quest together and like the dangers that they encounter. And I actually liked books 1 and 2 a lot, and I really like, I already like the world because it's part of, the same world that it was for the other 3 series. But obviously, obviously I like the world, I like the characters, I like the magic. I was really enjoying everything, also like interested in the plot. But in these 2 books, it felt like nothing was really happening. Like it was so slow. Obviously, I still like the world, I still like the magic, I still, for the most part, like the characters, but it was very slow. And especially like in the last book, where I expected things to be, exciting because it was the last book, it was very like anticlimactic. And even like the big thing that I was waiting for, it was very like glossed over. We didn't even get to see most of it. So it was kind of disappointing, but like I still, didn't hate it, but I definitely didn't love it either. And I gave the both of them 3 stars. Then I read Kill Creatures, which was a YA thriller, and we were following Nan. And like the previous year, her 3 best friends had gone missing, and she was the only one who like made it out of where the 4 of them were. And fast forward to 1 year after, which is where the main story is taking place. We keep getting flashbacks to the past, but when the main story is taking place, one of those other girls that went missing appears. And so she is very confused because she knows that they're all dead because she killed them herself. So like, how is she there if she was supposed to have been killed by Nan? So, I was very intrigued with that premise because it sounds, insane. So yeah, I was very intrigued. I was very interested. I was really curious to learn like what was happening. I was wondering if like, it was something supernatural or not, since someone had supposedly died and was back. But my excitement definitely like died down, and I feel like everything was very predictable and it wasn't as exciting as I was expecting. And like it was okay. I didn't hate it, but I also didn't love it, and I also gave this one 3 stars. Then I read The Devils, which was fantasy, and this was actually one of my anticipated releases for this year. And we were following Brother Diaz, and he was in the beginning of the book like assigned a new congregation, which was the Chapel of the Holy Expediency, I think. Yeah. And basically, this congregation is made up of various different beings, creatures. Like we had vampires, we had werewolves, we had elves, we had a magician, and that's not really what he was expecting and not really what he wanted, but they are assigned a job. They are supposed to take the long lost princess of Troy back to Troy, and that princess is Alex, and she's also a main character in this book. And they go on their quest. They find many dangers like on the way there, and also like when they do get there. And I really liked it. I had a lot of fun, and like I found out that this is actually the start of a series, which I didn't know at first, but like I'm very excited about that because I absolutely loved these characters. Like I was definitely interested in the plot, I was invested, but what really made it for me were the characters. They were all so interesting and they all like really grew on me, even the ones that I didn't really like in the beginning. Like Brother Diaz, like he definitely wasn't my favorite in the beginning, but he really, really grew on me. So yeah, I'm really excited to read more about these characters because I had so much fun and it was very dark, but at the same time, it was very, very funny. And yeah, had a really good time and I gave it 4 stars. Then I read Day Zero, which was like a sci-fi dystopian, and it was the prequel to City of Rust, which I had read like the month before. And basically, in that book, like book one, it was like we learned that there had been a war between humans and the robots like won. And so the humans had like gone extinct. And so in this prequel, we are learning about that war, like how it started, how it went. And so we are mainly following Pounce, who is a nanny bot in the shape of I think a tiger. And so basically, like he's a robot that his job is to like take care of a child. He's like a nanny, but a robot. And so when this war starts between the humans and the robots, he like still wants to protect like his child, even though he's a robot and the child is a human. He feels this connection and this need to protect the child, and so they go on sort of a journey together trying to survive. And it was really, really, really sad, but it was also really like heartwarming at the same time. And I really liked it, even though, like I said, it made me very sad. It was really good, and I also gave it 4 stars. Then I read Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil, which was another fantasy and another anticipated release. And so in this book, we are following 3 different women across like 3 different time periods. And so we start following Maria like in the most like past timeline. Then we follow Charlotte and we follow Alice in the like present. I think it was 2019. And so with Maria, she is like, she really wants to escape her hometown. And so she thinks that the best way for her to do that in 1532 is to find a husband who will, take her somewhere else. And so that is what she does. But things are, not as she expected. Like life is not as easy as she expected when she came up with that plan. And then Charlotte, we actually only start learning about her in the second half of the book, so I'm not going to spoil anything about her. And then Alice in 2019, but like her story is in 1827. And Charlotte is in, like I said, 2019. Yeah. And she basically like left her country. I think she went to Boston for college. And she was trying to like start over, leave her old life behind. And things also don't go as she expected because she has like a one night stand, and when she wakes up she starts feeling like very strange, and we very soon learn that she was turned into a vampire. And this is about vampires, so they all do eventually become vampires. And I really, really liked it. Like in the first half, I was really liking to get to know the characters, to see how they were all adapting to becoming vampires, like what they were dealing with, what they were going through, the people that they were meeting, the places that they were traveling. But I felt like there was no like very strong plot. Like I was really liking the characters, but I was like missing, a bit of a stronger plot. But in the second half, we definitely got like that stronger plot, and I was hooked, especially like Charlotte's story. I was really, really like into it. And I mean, I was also into the others, but then like I was really into Charlotte's. And like when all of the stories connected, I got even like more invested in the story, and I really, really liked it. I love the characters, even though they were definitely like far from perfect. They were all kind of, very toxic, and they were like definitely villains in other people's stories. But I loved it. I had such a good time with this book. I was obsessed, and I gave it 5 stars. Then I read Girl in the Creek, which was a horror fantasy-ish book, but mostly horror, and was also one of my anticipated releases. And you're following Erin, and she goes to, I think it was Fairday, the town where her brother went missing. And actually, like, that town had a lot of missing persons cases, and it also had like a bunch of creepy locations where weird things had happened. And one day when she's out with like her group, they find a dead body in the creek, the girl in the creek. And then that girl that was found dead, she like her body disappears from the morgue and her fingerprints are found in a crime scene. So, weird things are happening. And again, I was very excited about the premise. I was really, creeped out about all that. And we also had like some chapters that were from the POV of like the entity that was causing all of this, I guess. And those chapters were very creepy and I absolutely love them. But when we were just following Erin, and I feel like we were focusing too much on her life, or maybe I just didn't care about her. And I was, I didn't really care about those chapters. I was not really that invested in her. I loved, however, the very creepy chapters. So like it was okay. I liked it, but I really wanted more of the creepy part, and I gave it 3.5 stars. And I read 4 books in the same series, and I wrote down the titles because I don't think I would have remembered them all. And so I read Dungeon Crawler Carl, I read Carl's Doomsday Scenario, The Dungeon Anarchist's Cookbook, and The Gate of the Feral Gods. And so those are books 1 through 4 of the Dungeon Crawler Carl series, which is like sci-fi fantasy. And so in this world, we are following Carl, and basically in the beginning of book 1, the world is kind of like destroyed. Every structure gets like flattened, and so everyone who had like a roof or anything over their heads like has died when everything collapsed. And basically it was because like aliens are invading and only the people who are basically like outside survived, and Carl and his ex's cats were actually both outside. And so for everyone who was outside, they get like a message, and they are all, they all get the opportunity of entering the dungeon. And like if they don't enter the dungeon, they have to just stay outside and fend for themselves. If they enter the dungeon, they have to go through various levels that go down and down and down until they get to I think they're 18 levels, I could be wrong. And if they win, they get like a massive prize. No one has ever won in any planet, but if they win, they get a massive prize. And they also have to face a bunch of dangers inside. And so Carl does enter the dungeon with the cat who's called Princess Donut, and we see them as they go through the levels of the dungeon. And this is very like video game like, because they have like skills, levels of skills, they have an inventory, they have like potions, they have XP, and also it's a reality show for like other aliens, like it's on TV for others to see, and they also go like on interviews, and it is very fun. And it's full of action, it's very fun, and I absolutely love Carl and Donut. Then they do get like a third member to their group eventually, and yeah, I absolutely love these books. They are so fun. And so the first 3 books I gave 4 stars, and the 4th book, The Gate of the Feral Gods, like at the end we got like a very, very cool reveal that like I was already expecting, but I was really glad that it was confirmed and very excited to like about it and to keep reading. And so I gave that one 4.5 stars. Then I read or reread The Great Hunt, which is the 2nd book in the Wheel of Time series, in my very slow reread of this series. And this is, like I said, the 2nd book, and I always really struggle to talk about the series, like the premise, without spoiling. But basically there is like the, dark force, dark entity of this world, which is the Dark One. And there is the Dark One's enemy, who's called the Dragon, and they, faced off like thousands of years ago, and now the dragon is supposedly reborn, and they like sort of know like where, like the people who know about the prophecy know like where the dragon would be reborn and like how old he would be. And so the Aes Sedai, who are like sort of sorceresses, I guess, some of them know about that prophecy, and they are going to try to find the dragon. And so we are following one of them, who's Moraine, and she finds like this group of 20-year-olds maybe in a village, and like she knows that one of them is the dragon. And so we are following them, and they then go on, journeys, quests. And in this book we had the start of the hunt of the Horn of Valir, which is like a horn that will bring like some dead warriors, like famous warriors, back from the dead to whoever like blows the horn. And so we meet a bunch of new people, and there are especially like two characters that were, I mean, one of them was introduced here, the other appeared in book one, but was like way more, like appeared way more here, and I was very excited for that. And yeah, I had a lot of fun. I am really liking to be back in the series and just, catch all the details that I missed when I was first reading it, because I didn't really know what was going to happen in the future. Like now I know the future, so I can catch all the little details and like Easter eggs, and I'm having a lot of fun, and I gave it 4 stars. Then I read The Bewitching, which was a fantasy horror-ish and was also one of my anticipated releases. And this was following also sort of like 3 women in 3 different timelines. And we start following Minerva like in the present, and she is in college, and she is like researching a book, or like the original story that was the inspiration for a book that's like the author was in the same college as her, and like it's about the like disappearance of her. I don't remember exactly if it was a roommate or if they were just friends, but like she had a crush on the girl who disappeared. And there's also someone who disappeared in like Minerva's timeline like a bit ago. And so we are following Minerva. We are following also like that disappearance like from the book. We are seeing like some chapters from that timeline as well. And you're also following Minerva's great grandmother's timeline, like in the early 1900s, I think, where there was also like a disappearance, and she like always told Minerva that witches were real and that she had seen witches, she had interacted with witches. And like Alba's story was definitely my favorite because it was the witchiest, it was the creepiest, it was where we really saw, more magic and like the witches really doing more, and the disappearance was also definitely creepier, and also other people were definitely creepier. And I really enjoyed all of the stories, but I was definitely more into Alva's. And I like figured out what had happened like in that disappearance from the book like before Minerva did, but like I didn't really mind that. Like I actually liked that that's what it was. I really enjoyed it. And like I wish it had been a bit more creepy in the other timelines, but I still had a really good time, and I gave it 4 stars. Then I read A Court of Wings and Ruin and A Court of Frost and Starlight, which are books 3 and 3.5 in the ACOTAR series, which is fantasy romance. And so in the first book, I guess I can only really talk about the first book without spoiling the rest of the series. So in the first book, we start following Farah, who is a human, and she one day kills a wolf in the woods, and then later she finds out that that wolf was actually a fae that was, shape-shifted into a wolf. And so she is taken into the fae lands, and she meets other fae, and there is like sort of a curse on the fae lands, and she then gets like invested in trying to break that curse. And then, things get way bigger than that, and there is like a huge war coming, and that huge war really happened like in this book. And I was told by some girls from work that this would be my favorite book in the series, at least like so far, because it was more action and less romance, and they were absolutely right. I definitely liked this one the most, like no doubt. And I did really like the action. I did really like the magic that we got to see. I also do like most of the characters that we follow in the series. There was still, a bit too much romance for me, but it was definitely less than in the second book. And it's not like I hate that romance, I just don't particularly care about it. So it didn't really bother me that much. So yeah, I definitely had fun. And like I said, it was definitely my favorite, and I gave it 4 stars. And then in this one, basically, it's a novella, it's pretty short. And it's in the winter solstice, and they were just like preparing a party and buying outfits and buying gifts, and like nothing important happened in this book. Like if these are your favorite characters ever, you would probably still like it, because you're just following your favorite characters. And sometimes when I really love characters, I don't really mind what they're doing. If I'm following them, I'm happy. So if you truly love these characters, you might like this book. I like them, but I don't love them that much. So I was really, really bored because nothing relevant like to the plot was happening. So I give it 2 stars. Then I read The Heroes and Red Country, which are books 5 and 6, I think, in the First Law world, and they are the last two standalones after like the first trilogy and before the second trilogy. So, firstly, in The Heroes, and this is like fantasy, and in The Heroes, we are following some characters who are like in a war battle. It's like a 3-day war, like between the Union and the Northmen, and we learn like pretty early on why this war is happening. And we are like following two characters from one side and one character from the other. And like I really didn't love it as much as I expected, because I love this world. I love most of the characters in this world. Like even the characters that I don't love like as people, I love them like as characters. I think they're like great characters. But in this case, I wasn't really connected to anyone, and I think that is the problem, because I wasn't invested in anyone's like success, I guess. So I didn't really care about what was going on. Like I did like the action, obviously, but I wasn't emotionally invested. And like the third day was definitely the one that I was like enjoying the most. And like the end I did enjoy the most, but throughout a lot of it I was just like, and like I was following along, but I didn't really care. I was, like I said, not emotionally invested. So I still like it, but I sadly didn't love it as much as I expected, and I gave it 3.5 stars. And in this one, in Red Country, we're following Shai and Lamb, and when they get back to their farm, and Lamb is like Shai's stepfather, when they get back to their farm, they see that the farm was like burned, and the two kids, so like Shai's younger siblings, were kidnapped. And so obviously they are going on a journey to try to find the kids who were taken, and they find that like other kids were taken as well, like people they meet on the way say that their like kids or siblings or whatever were taken, and they then join like a bigger group of people. And we're also following Casca, who is like sent by the Union to basically stop a rebellion, and then their like bloodlines obviously, converge at one point. And this one I did really like, because I did really like the characters, so like I was invested in them, like personally, in their stories personally. And we also got to like explore more of this world and see like different people, different cultures, and like the people that like the kids were with. I really hope we get more about them in the future, because like I really want to learn more about them, because they were so interesting. But yeah, I really like this, and it was like really heartwarming and really sad at the same time, which, made me feel all the feelings. So yeah, I enjoyed this one more than the other, and I gave it 4 stars. Then I read Golden Sun, which is the second book in the Red Rising saga, which is sci-fi. And in this series, we follow Darrow, and first of all, in this world, the society is divided into groups that are like colors. And so the golds are at the top, they are the leaders, and the reds are at the bottom, and they work like in the mines in Mars. And Darrow is a red. In the beginning of the first book, he and his wife are like sentenced to death. And his wife, like, she does die, but he's actually saved by some rebels. And those rebels, they have a plan, and their plan is to infiltrate Darrow like into the golds, like basically make him look and act as a gold, and infiltrate the golds and basically like destroy them from the inside. And so that is like the story that we were following. And in the first book, like, this sounded like something that I would absolutely love, but I didn't really love the first book. Like, it was okay, but I didn't care. Like, I wasn't as attached to Darrow as I expected to be. And so I, again, wasn't that emotionally invested. Like, obviously, I care about the revolution, because, people are treated terribly. But, like, Darrow personally, like himself, I wasn't as connected to him. But the end of that first book definitely got me very excited, like, to continue. So in this book, I definitely was like liking everything more. I was way more invested in the plot, because also like the first book is like, it happens in like a school setting, and this one is more like in the real world. So I also like that more about this one, because I didn't know that about the first book, because I am an idiot and didn't really read the synopsis, so like I didn't know what to expect. But I like this one was more in the real world, and I was definitely more invested like in the plot that was happening in this book. And also Daryl, like I really connected way more to him in this book, and like some crazy things happened, and like especially the ending was absolutely insane, and I am like very excited but also very scared to what's to come. But yeah, I really liked it, and I gave it 4.5 stars. Then I read Not Quite Dead Yet, which is a mystery thriller and was one of my anticipated releases. And we were following Jet, and in the beginning of the book, she is like attacked. She's hit on the back of the head like 3 times. And then when she wakes up, she's in the hospital, and like she thinks that she's fine because, you know, she just woke up. But actually she's told that she has basically 1 week to live, because like in a 1 week-ish, an aneurysm will kill her. And so she decides to spend that week trying to like solve her own murder. And so, you know, we see her investigating, and she is actually like investigating with a friend. And I was very excited, and like it turns out that the investigation, like I was excited about it, I was invested, but at points it wasn't, you know, the most interesting thing ever. Like it was, you know, a bit long, but I like the characters so much. Like I love Jet and I love her friends, and I was so like invested in them personally that I was still like enjoying it so much, even if the investigation wasn't the most exciting investigation at times. But still, like I really liked to follow the investigation. It was still interesting. And at the end, it was very sad. It was very emotional. I was feeling all the feelings, and I actually finished listening to this on audio, and I was like doing it while I was working at the cell culture at work. So that was an experience. And yeah, I really liked it. I really liked the characters. I also did like the investigation, and I gave it 4 stars. Then I read A Raging Heart, which was the third and last book in the Heartless Fates trilogy, which was fantasy and also an anticipated release. And in that series, we follow Kala, who is a witch. And just like every witch in that world, her fate is connected to the witch's die. And like she literally throws the die, and the number that she gets is what's like connected to her fate. And she still has like 1 rule left, but it seems that her fate will be connected to like an upcoming war with their gods. And, you know, she's not excited about that. She doesn't really want that fate for herself. So she hears about someone in the Neverending Forest who could like reset her fate. And so she, you know, wants to go there. She wants to go to the Neverending Forest, and then she meets some people who also want to go. And there's like one person that is in the same situation as her, like they also want to change their fate. And so, you know, they go, in the first book, they go through a bunch of trials in the Neverending Forest until they get to where they are. And we also follow like Kala's 2 best friends a lot. Like the second book focused a lot on one of her friends who's actually a siren, and the third book focused a lot on the other friend who is like a witch as well. And we also see like other creatures. Like I said, there's a siren, and there are also like Valkyries. So it's not just witches, there are other things. And I really liked it. I was really invested in the first 2 books. I was really into all the story. But then the third book, especially the first half, it was going like very slowly, and we were focusing so much on like romance and not at all in the like fantasy plot line that I was just, you know, kind of bored. But then in the second half, we definitely got more into the fantasy, into that war that I said was coming, and I was definitely more interested in that part. Although I feel like the ending was a bit rushed, but I still liked it, and I liked, for the most part, like where the characters ended up. So I still had fun, but definitely didn't like this one as much as the other 2 books, and I gave it 3.5 stars. Then I read The Black Tongue Thief, which is fantasy and the first book in a series like with the same name. And we start following Kinch, who is a thief, and he actually owes a lot of money to the Takers Guild. And so he is, you know, as a thief does, robbing people. And one day he tries to rob the wrong person, because he tries to rob Galva, who is a warrior. And, you know, being a warrior, she obviously fights back, and he's not really able to rob her. And she's actually looking for her missing queen. And then Kinch and Galva end up like joining forces, and they go on a journey together. And Kinch is actually like given a whole other, you know, mission. And there is a cat in this book that is I mean, the cat itself is not magical, but there is something magical happening to the cat, and it's very funny. And they go, like I said, on a journey. They travel through various places, and a lot of it is actually on a ship. And I really love scenes that take place on ships, and they also have to fight like some sea monsters, which is really, really cool. And also, we know that there has been a war with the goblins, and like Galva is one of the survivors from that war. And the goblins are still like very much a threat, and we see them as well in this book. And I really liked it. I really like to learn about the world because we learned a lot about this world. And I really like the characters as well, and I really like the reveals that we had at the end. I had a lot of fun, and I gave it 4 stars. And there is like no second book yet, but there is a prequel, and it's about like Galva, like her past, and I am very, very excited to read that because this whole book was from like Kinsh's POV, and I am definitely very excited to read a book about Galva like from her own POV. So I hopefully will be reading that soon. Then I read The Devil All the Time, which was a horror book, and there were a lot of things happening in that book. We were following a bunch of characters, but I think most important characters were Willard, and he was a veteran that had just come from the war, and he like met a girl, they got married, they had a kid, but then she got really sick. She had cancer and like she was dying, and he started like making sacrifices and pouring blood on his prayer log to try to make sure she wouldn't die. And then we also follow Carl and Sandy, who are a couple of serial killers, and we are also following them as they, travel to find their victims. Then we also have Roy and Theodore, who are a priest and guitarist duo, and they've also committed some crimes. They're also like on the run from the law. And then finally we have Arvin, and Arvin is like Willard's son. And so this also spans like through a lot of years, and he is also like in some trouble himself. And I want to start by saying that like I didn't love this book mostly because this is not really my type of horror. I mostly like supernatural horror, like where there's like ghosts or monsters or I don't know, vampires, werewolves, anything like supernatural. I don't love books when they're just like horrible people doing horrible things. Like real life horror is not really my thing, and that's like what this book was. So I didn't love it because of that. Like it's my fault, not the book's fault, because like I've seen some like great reviews for this book. So, it's mostly probably because of that I didn't love it. But however, I still liked it because the way that like all the stories were like connected and intertwined, I thought it was really interesting, especially like, I mean, some of them we already knew were connected ish from the beginning, but like how everything came together in the end, I thought was really interesting, and I really liked that. So, it was not my favorite horror book. It was not my type of horror, but I still thought it was pretty good, and I gave it 3.5 stars. Then I read The Art of Prophecy, which is the first book in the Word Arts, I think, series, which is fantasy. And so in this world, it was like prophesized that there would be a hero born to defeat like this nation's big enemy, who's like sort of like half god. And so, that hero is born, and he's a boy called John, and he's like taken and supposedly like raised to be this hero. But when Taishi, a very famous, renowned warrior, gets there to like examine the boy herself, she realizes that he was actually not really trained as well as he should have been. He doesn't really have what it takes to be like that hero of the prophecy, because he's just very spoiled. Like they didn't actually train him, they just spoiled him. So like every time he spars with someone, he wins, but because they let him win, not because he's actually that good. So Taishi decides that she's gonna, train him herself. But then we learn that actually the prophecy got some things wrong. The prophecy itself is wrong, and they are actually forced to have to leave where they were and go on the run. And then we also follow Salminda, who is like on the other side of this conflict. Like she's from the side of that like half-god enemy that John is supposed to fight and kill. So, we are following like these people on different sides of this conflict. And she also has a very interesting story herself. but I don't think it's mentioned in the synopsis, so I'm not going to spoil it. And so we are following these three characters, and we see a lot of this world. We learn a lot about their politics and also like about their religions. And I really liked it, and I really, really liked the characters. Even John, who was just a spoiled brat in the beginning, like he really grew on me, like way faster than I expected. And Taishi is just an absolute icon. She's definitely my favorite character. And, you know, like I said, we have characters who are on opposite sides of a conflict, so it's kind of hard because I can't really root for everyone because, you know, eventually probably someone has to lose. So it's kind of hard. And like, if I had to choose a side, I would go for Taishi and John just because I like them the most. But I also do really like Salminda. And like I said, her story is also very interesting. And yeah, I really liked it. And I definitely want to keep reading the series because I am very invested and I really want to see where the story goes. So yeah, had a lot of fun and I gave it 4 stars. Then I read Once a Villain, which is the third and last book in the Monster series, which is fantasy and was also one of my anticipated releases. And in this book, or in the series, we start following Joan. And in the beginning of the series, I think she's either 16 or 17, I'm not entirely sure. And she is working at her summer job, and there she meets a boy who she has a crush on. And, you know, everything seems to be going great. Like, she has that crush, she is loving her summer job, but then one day, like, something strange happened and she like sort of loses time, and then she learns that like one side of her family, they're monsters, and so she is half monster, and that boy that she had a crush on is a monster hunter, like a very famous monster hunter. So she, you know, has to protect her family from this monster hunter. And then this story like gets so much bigger than that, especially like in this second book. The second book was absolutely insane. Like, I absolutely loved it. And at the end of that second book, they were in a lot of danger, they were in a lot of trouble. Like, the world itself was in a lot of danger and in a lot of trouble. And so when this book starts, obviously they are like in that situation, and it was definitely very fast-paced. It was very exciting. I was just like on the edge of my seat, and especially like in the first half. The second half, you know, some very convenient things happened, but like I still had a lot of fun, and that's like what really matters to me to rate a book, is like how much fun I had. And actually, shockingly, I actually like the romance in this third book, not like in the series as a whole, but like in this third book. And from the reviews I've seen, people actually mostly really did not like the romance in this book. And like, realistically, do I think these characters would work together? No, not at all. But again, did I actually have fun? Shockingly, yes. So, you know, I didn't absolutely love the ending, but I had a lot of fun getting there. And yeah, that's what really matters. And so I give it 4 stars. And the last book that I have read so far is We Used to Live Here, which is a horror book. And I had seen like the people that I follow mostly like loving it, and someone said that like it made them feel like crazy and paranoid, and that sounded exactly like what I want from a horror book. So we are following Eve and Charlie, and they have moved like into a new house. And one day when it's only Eve at the house, a family gets there, and the guy, like the father, says that like he used to live there at the house when he was a kid, and so he wants to show his wife and their kids like his childhood home, like if they can come in. And at first she like doesn't want to let them, but she is a people pleaser, and so she decides to just let them in. And you know, as soon as they get in, weird things are happening around the house and just to Eve in general, and it does get absolutely crazy. It does get absolutely insane, and you never really know what's actually happening. And like, even when you get to the end, you don't have like a very, you know, a closed ending. You don't have like a very, like a full explanation of what happened. You don't exactly know what happened. Like, I have my own theory, but you know, I'm not exactly sure if that is in fact what happened. And you know, I actually don't mind that in horror books. Like, if I'm reading, you know, a mystery, obviously I want an answer. But if I'm reading a horror book, I don't need like an actual full answer. Like, maybe when it's unexplained actually is even creepier. And I really liked it. It was so creepy. It was so unsettling. And it definitely made me feel a bit paranoid while I was reading it. Because, yeah, like, I didn't know what was real. I didn't know what I could trust. And yeah, I really liked it. I had a lot of fun. And I finished like 1 day ago, so I'm not entirely sure yet what I'm gonna rate it. But it's either 4 or 4.5. Like I'm in between that, but either way, like I really enjoyed it, obviously. And yeah, that is the last book that I have read so far. So, you know, if I do finish another book, I will obviously insert a clip like right here. Okay, so I'm here because I did finish one more book in the month of September. I actually finished it like the last day of the month, and that was Sorrowland. And actually, before we get into it, I think when I filmed this, like the rest of the video, I wasn't yet sure on what to rate We Used to Live Here, and I decided to give it 4.5 stars. So now that that's settled, I read Sorrowland, which was another horror book, and in this one we were following Vern, and she, like in the beginning of the book, she is on the run from the cult where she, you know, grew up in. And while she's on the run from that cult, like a religious sort of cult, she actually like gives birth to 2 babies. So, you know, that obviously complicates her escape. And there's like someone hunting her in the woods, which again, like she's running, she has 2 newborn babies, she's being hunted. It's obviously a huge struggle, and we see her like through some years, and there's like something happening to her body. So, you know, there's some body horror, which I love, and something like magical about what's happening to her, supernatural, and I really liked it. This one, like, it wasn't as much like the creepy vibe. Like, obviously it was creepy and scary, and I did really like the body horror, but it was also more like about the message of it. So like it was very different from the previous one that I talked about, but I really liked it, obviously for different reasons. And yeah, I think I'm gonna give this one 4 stars. So, you know, another great book that I read for this wrap up. And yeah, so now those are all of the books that I had to tell you about. And I think it ended up being 26 books. So yeah, very happy with that. And so yeah, those are all the books that I read in the last 3 months. And mostly I did really enjoy the book. So I am very happy, and I am currently definitely like in a reading mood. Like I want to read everything. I want to read nonstop. So I am loving that vibe. And yeah, that is everything for this video. So thank you so much for watching. I really hope that you have enjoyed it. And if you did, give it a like and subscribe, and I will talk to you next time. Bye!